Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Irv Homer Show. A little different theme song until Christmas. As you know, my name is Irv Homer, and we're broadcasting from irvhomer.com. Check out the website at www.irvhomer.com. You can email me at evilerv@irvhomer.com. We have a chat room on the Irv Homer Show, and our phone number, if you care to call in, is 215-253-8877. 215-253-8877. For those of you who remember my broadcast career, Alvin the Chipmunk was my sort of a co-host for many, many years. During the Vietnam War, Alvin enlisted in the United States military and served distinguished. He then came home and enlisted in the Army. And right now, Alvin is serving in Iraq and Afghanistan with the American troops. So we will remember Alvin in our Christmas spirit right here on the Irv Homer Show until he returns safely. And I'm sure all of you hope that he returns safely. This program, once again, is dedicated to NB. No bullshit. It's talk radio. It's my information, my feelings, my attitude. And when you're done listening to the program, I hope you get some information out of the program that you either never heard of or you forgot. And if you remember, the last program we did was on the tragedy of Bhopal, India in 1983, when Union Carbide, an American company, was responsible for the death of over 8,000 Indians in Bhopal, India. And it gives you a perspective, ladies and gentlemen, once again, that somebody representing you and me is creating havoc all over the world in our name, and we're paying for their misdeeds. You must remember when 9/11 occurred at the World Trade Centers in New York, when 3,000 people died, that the World Trade Center had been attacked in 1993, which meant that some reasonable person, such as myself, realized that eventually those towers were going to be hit again. They captured the blind cleric, a Muslim in New York who was still serving time and should have been aware at the time that this country was under attack by the militancy of Blind Sheikh, and I forget his name. I'm not good at pronouncing names anyway. So at that time I contacted the attorney that represented him and wanted to know why he represented him, and he said he represents the law. He didn't represent him in particular, but there was a lot of animosity against Ron Kuby, who you've seen on television. You've heard him with Curtis Sliwa on New York radio. And Ron takes these unpopular causes over the years. And he warned at that time, left-winger that he was, that there was more to this than appeared in the papers, or how the American people should be concerned about the fact of the growth of Islam. And he was totally ignored because, quote, he was a left-wing liberal that represented as an attorney unpopular causes. And so, after the tragedy of the terrorists in India, I did research and remembered the Bhopal incident in India, in which 8,000 people were killed, Indians were killed, as the greatest industrial accident that ever occurred in the world. And that over 250,000 children, Indian children, have been affected by the chemical poisoning that was caused by the explosion of the Union Carbide plant. But we forgot about it, but the victims of that American corporation did not forget about it. And so it festered up again, an anti-American attitude by certain segments of the Indian community in the nation of India. And so what has transpired recently is approximately 39 ships off the coast of Somalia have been attacked by pirates. And what to do about it? As if it never happened before. And I went into doing some research, and I recall the Achille Lauro. The Achille Lauro, a cruise ship, was boarded by PLO terrorists. The same as the pirates just boarded a cruise ship yesterday. And so, thanks to my son Ron, and thanks to the internet and Wikipedia and all the other sources of information, I said, Ron, pull up what you can get on the Achille Lauro incident. And as I said to a gentleman today that I do business with, I said, Brian, it's amazing that old people forget and young people don't remember or don't know because there wasn't in their particular lifespan. And so Brian agreed with me, and I told him about the Achille Lauro, which he remembered. A cruise ship that was hijacked on the open seas. The same MO, the same modus operandi that is used today to pirate ships. Did we learn anything from it? No. Did it come as a surprise? They're pirating ships. Well, let me tell you what happened with the Achille Lauro, ladies and gentlemen. On October the 7th, 1985, 4 men representing the Palestine Liberation Front took control of the liner off Egypt as she was sailing from Alexandria to Port Said. The hijackers had been surprised by a crew member and acted prematurely. Holding the passengers and crew hostage, they directed the vessel to sail to Tartus, Syria, and demanded the release of 50 Palestinians then in Israeli prisons. After being refused permission to dock at Tartus, the hijackers murdered wheelchair-bound American passenger Leon Klinghoffer because he was Jewish and threw his body overboard. You remember that, ladies and gentlemen? It's in all the television pictures. Yeah, Bob, it was shown on television. The ship headed back toward Port Said, and after 2 days of negotiations, the hijackers agreed to abandon the liner in exchange for safe conduct and were flown towards Tunisia aboard an Egyptian commercial airliner. But the plane was intercepted by F-14A Tomcats from the VF-74 Bedevilers and the VF-103 Sluggers of Air Wing 17, based on the aircraft carrier USS Saratoga on October the 10th, and directed to land at Naval Air Stations Sigonella and NATO base in Sicily, where the hijackers were arrested by the Italians after a disagreement between American and Italian authorities. The Achille Lauro was an Italian vessel. The other passengers on the plane, possibly including the hijackers' leader, Abu Abbas. Gee, that name sounds familiar. Isn't he the president in the Gaza Strip? Isn't Abbas the president of the PLO today? They were allowed to continue on to their destination despite protests by the United States. Egypt demanded an apology from the U.S. for forcing the plane off course. Italian Prime Minister Bettino Craxi claimed Italian territorial rights over the NATO base, and the Italian Air Force in Cabarini lined up facing the American Navy SEALs, which had arrived on 2 C-141s. Other Carabinieri, they're the Italian police, were sent from Catania, Sicily to reinforce the Italians. It was the gravest diplomatic crisis between Italy and the United States, but was resolved 5 hours later. The fate of those convicted of the hijacking is varied. Bassam al-Askar was granted parole in 1991. He died on February the 21st, 2004. Ahmed Maraf al-Asadi disappeared in 1991 while on parole. Yosef al-Malki was sentenced to 30 years, left the Rabinia prison in Rome on February 16, 1996 on a 12-day furlough, fled to Spain where he was recaptured and extradited back to Italy. Abu Abbas, the present head of the PLO, left the jurisdiction of Italy and was convicted in absentia. In 1996, He made an apology for the hijacking and murder and spoke out in favor of peace talks between the Palestinians and the Israelis. The apology was rejected by the U.S. government and Klinghoffer's family, who insisted he be brought to justice. Abbas was captured in Iraq in 2003 by the U.S. military during its 2003 invasion of Iraq. Ibrahim Fatayr Abdelatif was sentenced to 30 years imprisonment. He served 20 and 3 more on parole, and on July 7, 2008, he was expelled from an illegal immigration detention center in Rome. He planned to appeal this argument that he was nowhere else to go since Lebanon would not allow his return, as he was born in a refugee camp and is not a Lebanese citizen. The PLO was sued for its role in the death of Leon Klinghoffer. The $1.5 billion suit was dropped when the PLO paid an undisclosed sum to Klinghoffer's daughters. The family founded the Leon and Marilyn Klinghoffer Memorial Foundation in cooperation with the Anti-Defamation League, which works to combat terrorism through legal, political, and educational means. The ship continued in service. She was reflagged in 1987 when the Laura line became the Star Laura. On November the 30th, 1994, she caught fire off the coast of Somalia. Abandoned, the vessel sank on December the 2nd. And if you read in total the report from the Wikimedia Foundation, you will see that the ship was overcome by high speedboats, boarded the same way that the ships are being boarded today, and being pirated. Did we learn anything from it? No. Who launched the American naval fighters to intercept the ship, the aircraft that was flying the Palestinians to safety? President Ronald Reagan was the president. And Reagan, whether you liked him or not, would not tolerate American citizens being killed, would not tolerate international piracy, and took the opportunity to have Egypt angry with him. But he didn't care, because the safety of American citizens was prime importance to President Reagan. My question is, where's our president been? Why is it that President Bush was so gung-ho to go after Saddam Hussein and gung-ho to bring democracy to Iraq and gung-ho to go into Afghanistan after the Taliban, but has never had a press conference on international piracy, demanding from the United Nations, since we are the leader of the free world, that there be a unified United Nations action against the piracy that is going on off the coast of Somalia, in which American ships that have been reflagged. Well, let's talk about patriotism. Do we have a merchant marine in the United States, ladies and gentlemen? The answer is no. We have American ship owners, oil companies, transporting oil from the Middle East to the United States, but they're not flagged under the American. They do not sail under the American flag. The American traders that own these vessels, that lease these vessels, to avoid paying taxes, as we Americans do, reflag those ships with countries you never even heard of, thereby avoiding the tax liability that they should pay to the United States. Why do you think the oil companies make such tremendous profits? $300 billion the first quarter, $200 billion the second quarter. But who is dubbed by the bloviators on radio and television as being un-American? Someone who may object to the Patriot Act, someone who may object to the torture conducted at Guantanamo Bay. But they never talk about the multinational corporations and the oil companies of America that have reflagged their ships, although they're owned and operated by Americans, in countries that have no tax agreements with the United States. And so their profits escalate more than just the profit they make from a gallon of gas at your local gas station. And with 16,000 lobbyists in Washington buying our senators and congressmen with all kinds of perks and all kinds of political contributions, I'm waiting for one patriotic American to say we need a merchant marine to carry our own equipment, carry our own produced goods even in China on American ships. Go to the Navy Yard. Go to the Philadelphia waterfront, the New York waterfront, the Baltimore waterfront, California's waterfronts. You won't see transports there carrying the American flag. So we, the Americans, who bring up these points of Bhopal, India, bring up cases of piracy of the Achille Lauro, an Italian vessel in which an American was killed, we're un-American. Not the traitorous multinational corporations in America that buy and sell senators and congressmen like you do a roll of toilet paper, but we're un-American. Why don't we have a merchant marine to carry our own goods and services and oil? Because they're not patriotic. I do a radio program on WBCB Radio 1490 AM in Bucks County, and a gentleman called today who was well versed in international affairs, and he said, it is capitalism run amok. I demand that everyone make a fair profit on their goods and their services and their products. I think the working man in the world is entitled to be compensated for the work that he does. But I also demand that if you're an American corporation, that you don't reflag your ships. You don't move your industry out of America. You stay here and set the standards for the rest of the world, so that working people all around the world, China, Korea, Taiwan, Spain, Italy, Germany, where all the working people of the world can make a living wage. But it's not going to happen when there are special tax treaties demanded by the multinational corporations to avoid the taxes that they should pay to the United States government. And since we, the people of the United States, is the government, they don't pay us, but we pay whatever they want at the pump. Gas shortages in 1972, in which Americans were shooting each other in gas lines, while the ships that were laying off the coast full of oil so that they could raise the price, creating a false shortage in 1972. 30-some ships were lined up from Delaware Bay down to the ocean. Not one American flag on any of them oil tankers. So let's look at where the patriots are and where the patriots aren't. They're certainly not with the multinational corporations that we buy our goods and services and energy sources from. And that's why Irv Homer is doing this program and not heard on 600 radio stations. The liberals are under attack from the conservatives, and on my daytime program I don't get involved in labels like conservative or liberal or Republicans or Democrats. It is more of an informational based program, so I raise hell here. And the idiocy of one of the syndicated bloviators today criticizing the liberals because of the fuel standards that American vehicles are required to have, the high cost of the automobile in America, the invasion of the government into private enterprise such as the automobile industry. Well, let's take a look at why the American automobile is as expensive as it is. Is it the government's fault because the government said you will use catalytic converters on those vehicles so that you don't pollute the air? Is it the government's responsibility to tell the automobile manufacturers that you will put seat bags or airbags in and seat belts? Government invasion of private enterprise, according to this windbag bloviator on syndicated radio. Is it the government that is saying that you must put shatterproof glass in an automobile so that if that automobile is in an accident, the glass won't shatter and cut the passengers up? No. Not the government that imposes that. And if it is, who is exerting pressure on the government to make the government become the protector of the American automobile? It is the insurance industry of America with their staff of lawyers, ladies and gentlemen, who lobbied the United States government for many, many years to put safety devices in automobiles, raising the cost of the replacement of an airbag, the replacement of seat belts, the replacement of crash-proof glass, because the automobile or the insurance industry in America today has a field day. Most of the 50 states in America demand automobile insurance as mandatory. And they set the rate on what you're paying for automobile insurance on the car, the weight, the miles driven, and where the car sleeps. Now, I don't know how many businessmen may be watching this program, but I would love to have the business where the government mandates that everybody in America must buy my product. Let's say you were selling soft pretzels, and the government passes a law that says everybody in America must buy 10 pretzels a day. And the pretzel company will determine the price of those pretzels. Well, that's what the insurance industry does to the automobile industry in America. You may pay $30,000, $40,000 for an automobile in the state of Pennsylvania, but you will pay an additional $1,400 or $1,800 or $2,000 a year to insure that vehicle. So when you make the purchase of that automobile, there is a hidden cost that you don't take into consideration. What's it going to cost me to insure that Cadillac from General Motors? What is it going to cost me to insure that Lincoln that I buy from Ford? What is it going to cost me in insurance to insure that Jeep made by Chrysler? And that is a hidden cost to the automobile drivers of America, imposed by the insurance industry through lobbying to make those automobiles safe. Not the government. It's the litigious lawyers in this country who advertise in newspapers, television. You're in an accident, call me, we'll get you money. Call me, we'll get you money. Call me, we'll get you money. So let's place the blame where it really belongs, ladies and gentlemen, and not on the workers that manufacture those automobiles, but the insurance companies through their lawyers and lobbyists who insist that the cost of automobiles be escalated about $3,000 to $4,000 putting airbags, seat belts, catalytic converters, and crash-proof glass. Well, let's talk about personal responsibility. If the American people were personally responsible, you wouldn't have to have inspections. You would be smart enough to know that after so many miles, you should get your brakes checked. You should get a ticket if your headlights are out. You have idiots driving America with snow. They clean a little bit of snow off the windshield, a little bit off the back window, and they're driving like crazy in the snow. They can't see out of the rest of the car until the car heats up. Well, the automobile insurance companies know that you're stupid. And so you pay through your insurance premiums for the stupidity of the average driver who doesn't know that when it gets dark you turn your headlights on. So the companies now are required by insurance companies that when it gets dark out, the lights go on automatically. Or some cars now have running lights all the time. Not because the government says you must do it, not because the government is infringing on the automobile manufacturer, but the insurance company says, we got the license to insure these people, but we'll dictate what that car is going to look like, and why that car is going to have safety standards on it, and why we're going to sock it to the motorist with all the insurance premiums that we want to do. Are you getting the point? While these bloviators on syndicated radio are afraid to take on the legal industry, and lawyers in America today is an industry. They produce nothing for society. They tie up the courts. They cause dissent and desertion among the American people, and the victims never get compensated. Where the criminal has more rights than the victim. So all I request of my listeners is to think a bit, lose your head, and when you listen to these windbags, look at the total picture. Do you think the government cares if you have the seatbelt on? You get involved in an automobile accident, you'll get a surcharge on your insurance policy. Is that mandated by the government, or is that the insurance company's power to raise your premium? The medical profession and the insurance companies in collusion have gotten together and said, smoking's bad for your health. So we assume that the government is concerned about the health of we Americans. Once again, another intrusion by government who says that you can't smoke in a restaurant or in a bar. You can't smoke outside some buildings. Do you think the government cares if you get cancer or not? Do you really think that? The insurance company cares, because they have to pay the health insurance bill that you, when you have lung cancer, go into the hospital for treatment. So the insurance companies get the United States government to pass legislation against smoking. That don't bother me. Go ahead, bark, Sandy. Go get them tigers. That's my dog. Watchdog. Be careful. Don't ever try to come near me. So are you getting any information from this type of program on the Irv Homer Show? I guess I should say it. You should demand that this voice be heard on commercial radio with this type of program. Could I sit on a syndicated program across the country and take on the legal profession when lawyers are advertising on commercial radio stations, when they buy time, known as infomercials, Do you think any moderator or commentator on a syndicated radio station or television station could attack the legal industry in America when that radio station owner, television station owner, needs those lawyers to defend them in crazy cases that are brought before the court? I had 6 law firms on my program. You think I could sit there and blame the legal profession for what I just did tonight? And that's why I say, ladies and gentlemen, nothing's going to change until you, the people who listen to talk radio and watch television news, use your damn heads and stop idolizing these windbags and start questioning things yourself. I really don't need to do this. But it just irritates me and it aggravates me that my country, with the politicians we elect, with the legal industry that we have, with the insurance industry that we have, and the lobbyists we have, and the boobuses that we have, are destroying what used to be a good thing. And that was America. Multinational corporations that have no national allegiance to the United States. I remember that we had pride in this country. Name me one song that is played on radio like God Bless America. Onward Christian soldier marching as to war, with the cross of freedom marching on before. Where are the inspirational songs for patriotic Americans while our men and women are fighting in the military thousands of miles from here? There is no inspirations of the George M. Cohans. There's no inspiration of the Irving Berlins, who are dedicating to make America sing in support of the greatness of this country. We got a bunch of whacked out guitar players and 2-bit pimps that look like bimbo hookers on Walnut Street in Philadelphia that are making millions of dollars showing their breasts and showing their asses. That's what America's turned into. Do we have statesmen? Do we have brilliant thinkers in America today? No, we've got some idiot football player that shoots himself in the leg. And for that, we're to inspire our young people? That's supposed to be a role model? Every 2-bit bum that's over 200 pounds who can throw a football is now the American Idol? This country is going to hell not because of the government or because of the politicians. It's going to hell because of the public. If there was patriotism in this country, if there was pride in this country, would we have babies getting ill in America from taking formula made in communist China, where 300 babies have died from melanin that's in the food processes, in the formula? Do you read the labels of the formula you're feeding your baby? Why can't American babies be fed with American-made formula where the FDA or whatever oversight agency there is to protect the lives of our young children? That's the answers to the questions I want to know. We can't make baby formula here, where they have to recall thousands and thousands of dollars worth of food contaminated, produced in China, while they're building up a military machine with the Chinese Navy and the Russian Navy in Venezuela having war games as we speak tonight. And all the Republican Party is doing by the bloviators on radio. Where did the Republican Party go wrong? Blah, 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 blah. Instead of worrying about the possibility of piracy, instead of worrying about pride in America, Democrat or Republican, liberal or conservative, black or white, Christian or Jew, these assholes are worried about whether Barack Obama is going to go to the church where Reverend Wright was preaching. Demanding of our government schools and colleges to teach Arabic, to teach Chinese. Never mind the romance languages. America knows how to romance because every bimbo in the lower socioeconomic bracket is getting knocked up. We have a website here, and we also have a chat room. If you want any questions answered, please feel free to get on the chat room or give us a call at 215-253-8877. We have a question. Was it not once in the U.S. Constitution where a militia could be formed to put down the government if it became cumbersome and not what it was supposed to be? Please correct me if I am wrong. No, it is not in the Constitution. It is in the Declaration of Independence, which is an integral part of the Constitution of the United States. Yes, where the government no longer serves the people, but serves special interests, the people have a right and a duty to rise up and dispose of that government. But in one of the books that I do not want you to read because you may get too educated, and by not being educated, you could become a syndicated talk show host. Cracks in the Constitution by Ferdinand Lundberg will show you where the cracks in that Constitution are. You cannot understand the Constitution of the United States without reading the Declaration of Independence. In the Declaration of Independence, my dear friends, is a list of grievances that King George in England did not address. And in the Declaration of Independence, it specifically states, when the government doesn't acquiesce to the wishes of the people have a right to rise up and overthrow that government, which is what the Founding Fathers did. See, we did not have a revolutionary war. We fought a war of independence. A revolutionary war means you want to change the government of the oppressive government. We don't want to change the government of England. There's nothing in the history of the United States that said we wanted to change the government of England or overthrow the king. Nothing. The colonies were saying, as a colony of this kingdom, you are oppressing us with unfair taxes, unfair troops being placed in our homes and our businesses, demanding unfair tribute to the king. And if King George would have corrected that, there wouldn't have been any war of independence. But you're taught that it was a revolutionary war. And you idiots believe it. And the bloviators talk about the Revolutionary War. The Civil War that we fought in America was a Revolutionary War, where the South wanted the North to comply with its laws, and the North, by defeating the South, encapsulated the South and destroyed that government. That was a revolution. It wasn't civil. It was a revolutionary war. And people will say to me, well, Irv, that's just rhetoric. As Bible quotations are rhetoric. But if words are rhetoric, why even use them? Why even put them down in writing? Many years ago, they read the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence at Columbia University in the pre-law school, but they used layman's language. Over 70% of the class said that they would not live under a government like that. And so we have this big upheaval and the destruction of the principles of a great idea, and that was a representative republic. We do not have a democracy in America. A democracy is ruled by the majority. You would not want to live. Saddam Hussein had a democracy. He made everybody think alike. That's a democracy. Where the majority has the right to say, you minorities there have no rights whatsoever. We're the majority, therefore we have the rights. So please, don't use the word that we are a democracy. We are not. I don't want to live under a democracy. I want to live what we have. And to the republic for which it stands, it doesn't say in the democracy in which we stand, it says in the republic for which it stands. So that may be rhetoric to many, many people. But the difference between a democracy and a republic, in my opinion, as I read the dictionary and as I've learned over the years, I want to live in an elected republic where the minority has his constitutional rights no more. We have a question on the chat room here. It says, Irv, we fought the government not following the Constitution during Vietnam also. You remember the Congress is too wussy to declare war? Well, we didn't fight the government, but we sure as hell had demonstrations all over the country where the people finally said enough is enough. And if you read the Nixon papers, he was afraid that there was going to be a revolution in the country. Congress is made up of a bunch of cowards. The Constitution clearly spells out that Congress has the right to declare war. So what do these pimps do, including the John McCains? They give the president the power to go to war. I didn't vote for any war, did you? World War II, Roosevelt went to Congress and asked for a declaration of war, and they gave it to him. Desert Storm was UN resolutions. Did you ever read the UN Charter? How it destroys the American Constitution? In which we become part of a world government? This coalition of the willing in the Afghan-Iraq war, soon to be Pakistan and India war. There'll be a war there, make no mistake about it. And we aren't going to know which side to take because allegedly they are part of the nuclear club now. The fear today of internationalism, in my opinion, is the destruction of the national sovereignty of this country. And it is because of two things. Number one, the lack of natural resources that we have in America to sustain our standard of living. And the second is the un-American corporations that find it more lucrative to go overseas and build their factories and their plants without any of the safety standards or pay scales that we have here in America, while Boobus America buys the products. But you're against slavery, you're against totalitarianism, we're against dictators, but we buy a hell of a lot of crap from Red China, a dictatorship, a communist country that is out with the support and the collusion of the radical Muslims to dominate the world militarily, economically, and financially. An article that appeared, and I don't give newspapers credit for their writers, because the liberal paper may have a good idea as a conservative columnist, or a conservative newspaper may have a good idea with a liberal writer. And one of the best writers on foreign policy in America said, and I tend to agree with it, before we deal with the finances of America internationally, American corporations overseas, we must deal with mending diplomatic fences. We must deal mending diplomatic fences. It's not easy to do business with your enemy. We have no alternative. We have no alternative but to buy oil from dictators in the Middle East. Countries like Saudi Arabia, who made a big deal today, they're going to let women drive automobiles during the daylight hours. Ain't that a hell of an... We went in to overthrow Saddam Hussein to create democracy and free the people there, but have no problem breaking bread with the Saudi Arabian princesses because we buy oil from them. We love dictatorships, as long as the son of a bitch is our dictator. We have no pride anymore. The American people have no pride. Take a look at the way we dress our kids. Take a look at the styles that some women are wearing. You go out on a Saturday night, you used to be dressed. You go out now, you're sitting next to some bum wearing a stinking jacket and a shirt that needs laundering, and he hasn't shaved in 4 days. And his hair's down to his ass. And I got to sit next to that stink pot? I don't go out anymore. I go to a restaurant that has a dress code. When I go out and I spend $40, $50 for an entree, I want to sit in a nice, clean atmosphere. You want to dress that way? Fine, pal. I don't want to sit next to you. We must develop some type of pride in this country. We must have diplomatic relations with people around the world that we may not like, but we need. Do the windbag bloviators ever get on the air and talk about the fact that we consume in America for our lifestyle 60% of the world's natural resources? So we have to do business with people we don't like because they've got the natural resources. We are being led blind by the influx of windbags on talk radio, by politicians who now fear the Daily Show or the Colbert Report. Could you picture Franklin Delano Roosevelt going on the air with Milton Berle? When did you ever see a presidential candidate going on the air with Jack Parr? We have lost so much class in this country, it's pathetic. And as the morality and the conscience of America goes, so goes America, or any country. Nothing wrong with having class. You watch old movies. The Clark Gables, Franchot Tones. Who are the leading entertainers today? Every one of them bums need a shave. No tie. I believe in the freedom to express yourself any way you want to. But when I pay you money in a theater, I don't want to see you come out on a stage looking like a bum. To the chat room, Irv, I have to give credit to those in Thailand who had the fortitude to stand up to the government to demand a change be made. Try to get your neighbors to march with you here. Yeah, sure, John. Sure. John's referring to the Bangkok airport that was closed while 100 ships were blockading the airport. Been through that, fighting for a fair tax in America. The spirit of the founding fathers of this country, ladies and gentlemen, is dead. You have the revolutionaries, the crazies, on the left and on the right. You've got those crazies, and if you go around far enough, they meet each other, because they're both crazy. The extreme right and the extreme left in this country, there isn't that much difference between them. You don't want abortion in America? Don't march on Washington. If you are so committed to any cause, either on the left or the right, stop paying your income tax. If you pro-life people are that brave and committed to human life, then you wouldn't mind going to prison, would you? Or are you just a weekend warrior in Washington one day out of the year to protest Roe v. Wade? And you people on the left, if you gay people want equal rights, if you gay people want something, if you want to demonstrate against Proposition, you gay people in America, stop paying your taxes, and maybe they'll put all your asses in jail, and then you will be standing up for freedom. You don't want to sacrifice anything either on the left or on the right. If a priest in the Catholic Church or the cardinal would say, don't pay your taxes as long as this is a pro-abortion country, I would applaud them to the highest mountain. So they circumvent the law by having politicians come into the church and telling them who to vote for, as long as the church gets its tax-exempt status. Every church, synagogue, or mosque, in my opinion, that accepts a tax exemption from the United States government is nothing but a legal religious prostitute. People of the clergy, people of religious faith, throw off the shackle of the tax-exempt status and take to the streets and change this country. But as long as you religionists are pimps taking handouts, manna from government, you're cowards, yella. You wouldn't sacrifice that much of your own personal life for your cause. But as long as you get your face on television, you're happy as a pig in mud. The government is safe knowing the way you people are. They know that you're not going to sacrifice anything. They know you'll pay $4 for a gallon of gasoline. They know you'll get lousy health care in the emergency rooms. They know that if you're over 65, you go into a hospital, that's a license to kill you. I'm going to get into the way they treat senior citizens over 65 when they go to a hospital. They know that we become soft. They know there's no dedicated people in America. Name me one person who's willing to go to jail for his principles in this country today. The churches take government handouts. Synagogues take government handouts. Mosques take government handouts. You sell your religious soul to Washington, D.C. You want me to respect the pro-life movement in America again? All Catholics who are opposed to abortion, stop paying your taxes tomorrow. Go to your employers and say to your employer, you will not take any taxes out of my pay. The Quakers during World War II, the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Amish, Cassius Clay, later known as Muhammad Ali, lost his title and almost went to prison, or did he go to prison? I forget. Because he wouldn't fight in a war. He will fight in a ring, but he wouldn't kill anybody. That's principle. Not those who fled the country. The American government knew that. They had a status called conscientious objector, CO, which meant that you would serve in the military, but you would not carry a gun. So they made the medics. And they gave them office jobs. But there aren't any people of principle in America anymore. You believe in God, you believe in Jesus, you believe in Moses. As long as your ass is safe, you believe in them. But God forbid you would have to make a sacrifice. You sacrifice at nothing. Because we've lost that spirit. We've lost that spirit. Question is, how are these goody two-shoes going to pay for millions of unwanted children? That is a good question, my dear friend. But apparently, they are willing to pay for them. Through orphanages, through adoption, through other forms of birth control, which is also not religious, that birth control. That's a question for them to answer. I'm Irv Homer, once again, broadcasting from irvhomer.com. My website is www.irvhomer.com. You can email me at evilirv@irvhomer.com. RGH Computer Services for all your computer problems, your security systems in your computers. Just give them a call at 215-322-8685. 215-322-8685. The terrorists are out to kill us, but they are willing to die for it. When you go to bed tonight, you hear this program or read the archive, what would you be willing to die for your cause? Would you be willing to shake government tax-exempt status for your religious institution? Think about it. I'm Irv Homer. Till the next time.